Good evening. Welcome to the annual town meeting of May 12, 2025. I'm Mark Salerno, town meeting moderator. I'd like to start with a pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is it on? Good, thank you. Okay. I would like to ask the town clerk, Karen Galbo, to read the call to the meeting.
Notice of annual town meeting. Notice is hereby given of the annual town meeting to be held on Monday, May 12, 2025 at the East Lyme High School Auditorium at 7 p.m. to act on the following. 1. To review and discuss the budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 as recommended by the Board of Finance. A. In accordance with Chapter 7.3 of the Town Charter, the moderator shall adjourn the annual budget meeting to a referendum on the voting machines. The budget resolution will be submitted to the persons qualified to vote in a town meeting by referendum by machine vote, which referendum shall take place on May 22, 2025 at the East Lyme Community Center from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 2. To adopt a 5-year capital plan. 3. To conduct such other business as may properly come before the meeting. This was dated at East Lyme, Connecticut, the 2nd day of April, 2025. It was posted on the signpost, advertised in the day paper and on the town website, and filed in the town clerk's office.
Thank you, Madam Town Clerk. I'd like to go over the ground rules for tonight's meeting. Under Connecticut General Statute 7.6, to vote in this meeting, you must be an elector of the town and must be a U.S. citizen 18 years or older who owns property on the grand list of October 1st, 2024 in the amount of $1,000 or more. Under Connecticut General Statutes 9-3.6, any person who votes at this meeting who is ineligible to vote or is an eligible voter who votes more than once could be subject to a fine no less than $300 and no more than $500, and prison for no less than 1 year and no more than 2 years, and be disenfranchised. Anyone who attempts to vote assuming the name of a legally qualified person shall be guilty of a Class D felony and shall be disenfranchised. Please do not conduct dialogue amongst yourselves and address all questions to the moderator. If you wish to speak, please come to the microphone and give your names and address for the record. There's 2 microphones there on either side. If you're not eligible to vote, please make that known before you address the meeting. Please note there are no expenditures being voted on tonight. The agenda item for the 5-year capital plan is not an expenditure, so we will only vote to approve or deny the plan, not amend it. In the event we need tellers and checkers, I'll appoint the register and assistant register if they're needed. So let's move on. The budget is being referred to referendum according to Town Charter Item 7.3, so there will be no motion on the budget. We will simply have a reasonable discussion, allow for the exchange of information, and allow for final questions and comments to be made prior to the referendum on May 22nd. After that is over, we will entertain a second item on the agenda, which is the 5-year capital plan. I will open the meeting to any discussion. Would anyone like to be recognized? Mr. First Selectman.
Good evening, everyone. Those that were here at the previous meeting 2 weeks ago, a lot of this will be familiar, but for those that weren't here, we will review. There we go. Okay. So this is a review of the budgeting process, and the way it works is the department heads submit initial requests to my office. I meet with the finance director, we meet with the department heads, and we have conversations and try to figure out what items can be adjusted so we can get to a budget that would pass muster at a referendum. The next step is I make my cuts, and then I propose those cuts to the full Board of Selectmen. Again, there are department presentations and questions before the Board of Selectmen. We really go through that same process all over again, where department heads come in, the Board of Selectmen gets to ask them questions, and they get to answer. And then that's another round of budget cuts. Finally, the Board of Selectmen forwards the budget to the Board of Finance. And once again, they go through the similar process where the department heads come in, they address the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance makes further adjustments to get it down to where they think the town can accept the budget. And then the other thing is there's a capital improvement program committee that we did this year. This was the first time that we did a capital plan committee. And what we did, the members of the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, some people at large, we all got on a bus and we drove around to all the various facilities in East Lyme. We looked at the buildings, we looked at the equipment, and Parks and Rec said, we need a new lawn seeder or, a device, a tractor, whatever it is they were, vying for in the budget or in the capital, long-term capital plan. We got to see it. And we could make evaluations of whether this was something that really needed to be replaced next year or maybe 2 years down the road. But we had never done that process before. In the past, what would happen is we'd get to the end of the budget process and we'd be, oh, gee, we got to go through the capital plan. And it often seemed to me that there was a lot of decisions that were arbitrary without enough information. So this year, we established a capital improvement program committee, and it was really a great process. I hit a button here. What did I do? Okay. There we go. Yeah. So, and every year I'm hopeful that in the future we'll be able to do that every year, and really see what the equipment is, what the buildings are like, and make informed decisions. So, with that, and having the benefit of that information, let's explain what some of the budget initiatives are for the coming budget. First was to expand the East Lyme Fire Service. We hope to hire a 12th firefighter July 1st, 2025. That would give us a full complement of 4 firefighters per shift. There's three shifts per day, and we have 4 firefighters on a shift, so that would complement the process of scheduling the firefighters, having 12 firefighters. Very important. We have a long-range plan. It's not going to happen the next year, but down the road we'd like to see a total of 18 firefighters, so we could have 6 firefighters per shift and have 2 stationed at each of the fire stations. So at any time we would have 6 firefighters on deck 24/7. Another request is a new rescue boat in the capital budget. We really don't have an adequate boat to go out and rescue somebody. We've had at least 2 instances this past year where it was necessary to rescue someone out in the water. One was on December 20th. The fellow was on a sailboat and it was sinking and he was in distress, and we had to put a boat in the water, and with the assistance of the Coast Guard, they saved the man that was on the boat. And then there was another incident you probably read about in the paper where there were some young ladies that were partying or swimming at about 2 in the morning in the Nanick River, and they tried to swim across the river. Couple of them made it to land, but the other one was missing. But again, they had to put out to sea, or into the river at least, and they did rescue and find that girl. So there is certainly a need in a coastal town for an adequate rescue boat. Enhancing services for the community. This past year, you probably read in the paper, we created a Fair Rent Commission, and that's a commission that helps to moderate landlords and tenants, and help to moderate what the landlords can charge and what the tenants can afford to pay. And it worked out very well. There was one particular apartment building where they were able to get together and they were able to maintain the community where people didn't have to leave because it was too expensive, and they raised it enough so that the investor, the owner of the property, could still pay their bills and things that they had to pay for. So it was a very good process, and so we created that this year. expanding youth and family services. There's a great need for counseling and elderly people getting advice and help. So we did expand youth and family services. It's another layer of service that we can provide in town. We've increased senior center bus service. It's very difficult at a certain age to get the doctor's appointments or maybe get to the, to CVS or Rite Aid to pick up your prescriptions. Not everybody has the wherewithal to hire an Uber or can afford to hire, someone to pick you up and give you a ride to your doctor's appointment. So our senior center bus service is a very important service that we provide, and we've tried to increase that. And then there's several nonprofit organizations in town. Care and Share is one of them, the Blue Doors, another that we made contributions to on behalf of the taxpayers. One of the initiatives is to increase the use of cash capital to reduce debt burden. Now, what that means is, in a town, it's not so much different than your own family budget, where you're out to dinner, you either pay cash or you put it on the credit card. So to the extent that you can pay cash for things, you're reducing your debt service in the future. And so this year, last year, we were able to use $902,000 of cash to pay for some of the things we have to pay for, and we didn't have to borrow that money. This year, we're trying to increase the use of cash to meet the town obligations, $1.3 million. So that means that's $1.3 million we don't have to bond, and that we would have to pay off over 20 years. So every year, we're trying to increase the amount of cash. We're trying to be conservative and increase the amount of cash that we use, and we're working towards a goal of eventually using $2 million in cash capital annually. And the savings to the town long term is substantial if we can continue to do that every year. So we're trying to be very fiscally conservative and smart, and don't use the credit card. Let's try to pay cash for those things that we can pay cash for. Resilience. A few weeks ago, I went to a cybersecurity scenario where there was a town and there was a cybersecurity attack, and they attacked the water and sewer system, which was controlled by computers, and created havoc. Municipalities are really soft targets for cybersecurity threats. We're not hardened like a bank or like a Merrill Lynch account would be. We're not hardened like that. We're a soft target. So we're trying to do better and do more to be aware and to increase our infrastructure, have better software to protect the town and its infrastructure from those types of threats. So we're trying to increase that. And communications, there's some problems with the radios talking to each other in an emergency situation. Not all the radios communicate as they should. So how you fix that is with the right radios, better towers with repeaters, better software. So we've been working on that. We want to harden and improve that infrastructure. Very important for the police, the fire, other departments to be able to communicate in an emergency. And we're deficient in that area. We're not where we need to be, and we're going to try to get there. They've been trying for years to do it, but I've really made it a priority, and we've got to get that fixed. So we're working hard on the communications. And then Coastal Resiliency Fund. So we're on the way to creating a Coastal Resiliency Fund, which is a fund we accumulate money in case there's, we had the problem with the seawall that caved in a couple of years ago. So there's a pool of money to help solve some of those problems. So year after year, we can put money into the Coastal Resiliency Fund. We're not putting an awful lot in. I think maybe it's $25,000 this year we're putting in. But if we can do it every year, then we have a pool of money to draw on in that type of an emergency. The other thing that's important about that isn't just fixing a wall, but it's when we go to borrow money, our bond rating. Coastal communities, the bond ratings look at if you have a Coastal Resiliency Fund, if you're a coastal community. And without it, you're going to pay more for the money you borrow. So we want to be sure that we have that fund in place. Now, we've taken steps, and if everything goes as planned, It's been before the Board of Selectmen, it's going back to the Board of Finance, and finally it'll come back to the Board of Selectmen to create the ordinance, to create the fund, and we expect, with all the timing, and I think we got it right, we'll have that in place before the end of the fiscal year. So by the end of June, we'll have an ordinance that creates a coastal resiliency fund, and that'll help us in the future, saving money down the road when we go to borrow money. Okay, so what are some of the drivers? You know, why is the budget what it is? Why can't it just stay the same every year? Why does it have to go up? There are increases. One is increased health insurance, 9% this year. Increased electrical costs. Everybody has seen it on your electric bill. There's a section in orange, I think, on the right-hand side. It's public benefit. The town pays that too. And it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that we have to pay every year that our bills have increased because of that public benefit fund. So it's not just you when you pay your bill, it's the town has to pay that as well. Increased pension contributions. Currently it's $700,000 that we contribute every year. We're expecting next year it'll be $1.1 million that we have to contribute into the pension fund so that when the time comes, when people retire, that money will be there, it'll be in the pension account, so they won't have to worry that the town doesn't have the money to pay their pension benefits when they retire. East Lyme is in very, very good shape in that regard, much better than many other municipalities. So our pension board, they meet regularly. I've sat in with some of those meetings. It's a little over my head, the way they talk about the numbers and the investments, but it's very sophisticated. They do a wonderful job. We're blessed with some very smart people to sit on that pension board, and they really keep track of that fund, and this year to keep pace with it, it will go up. So that's what we have to contribute more this year. Software costs, just like when you buy your computer, you have to buy Microsoft or an Apple operating system. Same for the town. But we have many, many different types of software. ADP, which is the payroll. Axion, which is the body cams for the police. That's very expensive. They store it up on the cloud, and then in order to get access to it, we have to make sure we're up to date with Axon and and some of the other software products we have to buy. We already talked about hiring an additional full-time career firefighter, and of course inflationary pressures continue. Plague. I thought the plague. We just went through COVID. I saw plague here, and I was freaking out. No, it continues to plague the operating budget. So, well, all right. And then we talk about collaboration, but between different departments in the town to create efficiencies, and we really do try to do that. Public Works, Parks and Rec, Board of Ed. We try to find those areas where maybe we can share resources and save the town some money. So we're trying hard to do that. Not always easy because systems are different and priorities are different. So let's look at the overview. This is kind of the big picture. But if we look at the fiscal year 2025, the adopted budget, that's the one on the far left. In 2025, we adopted for the town operations $22,911,317. Debt service, and that's what we were just talking about, what we have to pay in debt, why we want to try to do things to reduce that every year, was $6,754,252. And then cash capital was $902,750. So, we reduced debt service by that $902,750, and we're going to try to keep on doing that. So the subtotal was $30,586,319 for the town budget, and then the Board of Ed was $60,024,675. So the total budget for 2025 was the $90,592,994. So now the next columns are this year's budget, and it started off, and I won't go through every number, but the bottom line was department heads, They requested $99,150,188. With the cuts that I made as the first selectman, it went down to $98,298,345. Then when it went before the Board of Selectmen, they actually increased it a little bit. They went up to $98,371,252. That's because there were some of the cuts that I made that they thought there were certain services or things that the town required, and so they added back in something that I had reduced. And finally, the Board of Finance took another look at it, and it ended up being $96,657,786, which is a 6.69% increase. So that's where we sit tonight. That's being presented to you, and you'll hear from the Board of Ed, and Superintendent Newton is here tonight, and he'll present his portion. Then we'll hear from the Board of Finance. Denise Hall is here. So I will give you the podium.
All right.
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Cunningham. Let me first start by just thanking our boards, the Board of Education, our chairman, Mr. Baumann, who's here, our Board of Education members, as well as Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, for all their work and effort that they put into the budget process year after year. It's a lot of work from start to finish, as we know, and the process is a busy one, and we'll lead it up to the referendum next week. For our district, I want to also just thank our team members, our admin team, especially our finance director, Mrs. Stevens, for all of her work as well. You know, we build our budget from the ground up, and it starts very early in the school year. We'll show you a timeline in just a second. A couple of accolades, and most of this we shared, just a couple slides where I want to share a repeat of what we shared at the public hearing. A couple of accolades from this year, and we have many of them across our school district, many things that we're proud of, extremely proud of. We have community and peer mentor growth programs. We try and branch out and work with our community, work with our senior citizens, working with our students. We have a composting program that started here at the high school, driven by one of our own staff members, which was phenomenal and is up and running this year. She went out and raised the money to make that happen. We have ECC and state team champions. We have students, athletes that go on to become state champions. We have our high school band, the national champions in U.S. bands. So some great things happening, and one of the biggest ones, you know, this high school ranked 10th in the state by Money Inc. Recently. So to be ranked 10th in the state for high school is pretty phenomenal accomplishment. I won't read them all, but there's a lot of great things and a lot of effort to reach out to our community and team up on efforts. With that being said, also shared services. Our first selectman talked about shared services just a minute ago. We do many shared services, you know, with the town, sharing of utilities, sharing a mail courier to save money. We share with other districts as well. We've got partnerships going on with Waterford, partnerships with Old Lyme, where those students are coming to us for an ENT course here at the high school. We're planning on sending some students to Waterford High School next year to take and partake in an automotive class. So that's a good shared service model and branching out to tap into extra resources for our students across the region. We also share our food service director, our facilities director, and our security director. They all oversee Salem Public Schools, and provide those services, and Salem pays us a fee. So there's another effort where Salem is being, small, one school district where they benefit from having our expertise in covering those areas. And we also share coursework. We have a regional high school collaboration, and that goes back to that, sharing of students between schools. So just and one other quick, our nursing supervisor, we just put a nursing supervisor in place this year, and that person goes between Waterford and East Lyme, overseeing the nurses across both districts. So a lot of cost efficiency, a lot of cost measures that we always look at year after year to try and save the Board of Education money and the town money as well. Process for us this year, as I said, it's a fairly lengthy one. It starts back in the very beginning of the year, end of September. We're already reaching out to the schools. We build from the bottom up, zero-based budgeting. We ask our schools to put together their budgets. That starts with the teachers and staff in the classrooms. They bring forth their needs to the principals put their budget together for the school, and they send it up to central office. We put them all together, and we comb through that information and bring it to our first workshop, where we always have a preliminary budget for the next coming year. That started off at 8.26%. Back in November at that budget workshop. And we use that workshop model to really collaboratively talk about the needs of our school district. December, we have a month later, we have another workshop where we're able to, through the great work of Mrs. Stevens, comb through every line item, find duplicates of things that maybe the school put in, that central office might have put in, and we work through those components. Then my proposed budget was a $64,220,400, 6.99% increase. That went to the Board of Education. Board of Education brought it down to 6.72% for an increase. It then went to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance initially made a reduction to that increase, and that brought the percentage down to 4.22. After the public hearing, they reinstated some dollars, and it brought it back up to 5.34% of an increase, which is $63,232,400. And just to lay that out a little further, the Board of Finance, in the end, the reduction of the increase for the Board of Ed was $675,000, and you can see that reflects the 5.34% over the current year. Lastly, I just want to mention fixed costs. Mr. Cunningham talked about inflation, talked about contracts, very similar to us. 97 to 98% of any school district's operating budget is contracts, is fixed costs. We have contracts with staff, teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, custodians, secretaries. Those are all contractually driven and usually have a 3-year contract associated when we negotiate those. Also, you have transportation contracts. You have electricity contracts. So all of those contractual obligations fit into that large red ball right there. The little sliver here, our supplies, textbook, software, and equipment 3.20 is really kind of what we have to work with. And that's a very small sliver outside of your contractually obligated components for a district operating budget. And that's all I have to share. Thank you very much for being here tonight. I will turn it back over to Mrs. Hall, our chairman of the first select, the Board of Finance, sorry. Let me get you set up there, Denise. Okay. There you go.
Good evening. Thank you for coming here tonight. I appreciate having people involved in town government. So I appreciate everyone here, and just want to call out Kevin Gervais, our finance director, for doing a wonderful job for us and puts in countless hours and a lot of hard work, and we just want to say thank you. Which way is this going?
Top one, the bigger one in the middle there.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Ooh, it's not mine, what's that?
It's not going anywhere.
Here, let me see.
Oh, that's the,
Did it go back to, did you put
went-
it back to the beginning? She follows you, correct? All right,
yes.
let me get to, there you go. Okay, you're all set.
Ah, that's the old one. That's the April one.
Did you have them all together in that one?
Yep,
Here, let me look here.
sorry.
Yeah, there's only 2 documents here, mine and yours. So,
But that says public hearing.
so
not
we'll
town
right
meeting.
back up to the beginning.
How about that one?
That's mine. I just
Oh.
finished, yeah. Grant, I'm not seeing, do you have the other one on this computer, Grant? I think what Dan might have done, did he just go through the old one? Because he started from the top, right here. Let's see. It still says April
Yeah.
28th.
Well, that could be the problem.
Yeah, I think, did you use the old one? All right, we'll get to,
I'm just,
Was yours a separate document?
yeah, yep, there was only 2 down here.
yeah, this is the public hearing one.
Yeah. Grant, do you see the screen up there, or can you project it from up there? Okay. Okay. So that's the one from this afternoon? Okay. He can show it from,
Okay.
he can switch it to show it from up there. Or maybe it's coming down.
I've never been to a presentation here, but there is on it. No, really, every time. So he's going to do it from up there, too.
He's coming down. Okay, let him set that down here then. Sorry about that. Denise.
That's all right.
No.
Let me see that here. Oh, this is yours. Okay.
Oh, they were the old ones? Excuse me.
I thought I saw that too.
Well, it's going to be on mine.
It'll be on her, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's minimize this. So it's right here,
512.
this one right here, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the one, okay.
That's- And then, so that's the first selectmen's, and that's,
That's it.
Okay.
yes,
My apologies.
no problem.
Should have intermission music playing. This is for your device. Just want to check here. Oh, wait. Slideshow from current slide. Perfect. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience.
No, thank you. So, sorry about that. So generally speaking, the April 28th presentation, there was only one small change, or one item that was changed was on the Board of Ed. Since the presentation that was up here previously for Mr. Cunningham's numbers, they were from the April 28th. The one I'm going to show you now is the one that is the result of the meeting that took place after the public hearing, where the adjustment was made to the Board of Education budget. So these are all the correct numbers for everything. Things were just a little bit off from April 28th. So basically, what you're seeing up here is the overall increase in the expenditures from last year. Town operations, the Board of Finance made a number of cuts. Mainly, they were due to public safety, a $369,000 decrease to what the department had asked for, an $87,000 decrease from what the head of Public Works was looking for. General government and benefits was a decrease of $271,000, and we decreased our contingency fund by $67,500. But even with all of those cuts to public safety, public works, the things that we're doing every day in town, it is still an increase of 10.04% from the previous year. And as Mr. Cunningham went through what a lot of the drivers of those increases were. The Board of Education operations, as Jeff pointed out after the public hearing, there were quite a few numbers of parents that spoke in opposition to the decrease that the Board of Finance had proposed. And so the restoration of that resulted in a total of $825,000 reduction to the budget that the Board of Ed asked for, with $150,000 of that a adjustment to their initial insurance number that they had in there. What happens is both the town and the Board of Ed use the same state insurance program. The Board of Ed adopts their budget before the state of Connecticut releases what the increase in insurance is going to be. But by the time the town adopts their budget, they have gotten the updated number from the town. So $150,000 of that $825,000 total reduction to the Board of Ed was just an adjustment in the insurance number. Our debt service number, there's not a lot we can do to that. That's basically taking all of the bonds that are outstanding and what is it going to take for us to service that debt in 1 year. So there's really no monkeying with that. And then cash capital, as Mr. Cunningham explained, is our attempt to do more with cash. One example is every year in our capital improvement plan, we set aside money for roads. Roads is a continuous thing that we're always working on. It's a lot of miles of roads in the state, and so Public Works has a continuous program of updating those. So one of the things we would like to do is be able to pay for that with the cash capital as opposed to bonding for it. So to the extent that we can keep adding to that cash capital, it will save us in insurance costs over the years. But as the Board of Finance was reviewing everything, we were trying to minimize the impact on the tax increase overall, and so we also dropped that from the initial request from the Finance Director. Our revenues, as you can see, the biggest number is taxes paid by our residents. Connecticut has the third highest property tax in the country. Towns in Connecticut have very few sources of revenue outside of our taxes. The other is our intergovernmental revenues, so that could be state and federal grants, everything from pilot, which is payment in lieu of taxes. One of the things that we went through this year, and I actually wrote a letter to the editor, and it went into the Connecticut Examiner and the Hartford Courant, was we have what we call payment in lieu of taxes, and one of those, that is a state grant that's supposed to make us whole from the fact that they have state-owned property in our town. And when the state owns the property, they don't pay us taxes in the same way that if that property was in the hands of residents, that they would be, paying. So we have York Correctional Center, we have Rocky Neck State Park, we have Camp Net, we have a number of other properties in town, and if the state fully funded what our assessor viewed those as could have generated taxes by residents or businesses, then we would be getting over $3 million. Instead, we get less than $1 million from the pilot grant. But We get town aid for roads, grants, there's a number of different things, and all of that goes into that intergovernmental revenues. We have investment earnings. Any of the funds that are in our general fund can be, as everyone pays their taxes twice a year, the town's bank account grows, we're able to invest those funds in certain instruments, mainly money market, CDs, repurchase agreements, treasury bills, things like that, or the state of Connecticut short-term investment fund. So those funds come due very quickly, and we're able to make payroll and do all of that. So the town's bank account basically goes up big in January and July, and then slowly gets spent down. But as we're able to, we invest those funds short-term, and that creates that investment earnings. So we have charges for services, for different things. We can, as building inspectors go out, as we get homes that are sold and they pay conveyance taxes, all of those different things are our sources of revenue. So overall, you know, the expenses and the revenues have to balance out, so the total budget would then be up to 6.69%. So how does that impact your mill rate? So what we do is get a total of the grand list, so the value of all the properties in town, determine what the value of one mill would be. We then make a best guess on the collection rate, so how will people pay their taxes. So we've had a very, healthy experience of people paying their taxes on time, and we actually put up our collection rate. We thought we'd been doing, a little bit better than the 98.2 that we've used in past years, so we upped that to 99% that we think that we can collect, and reduced the delinquency rate. So all of that results in a required tax levy of $78,600,296, which would result in a mill rate of 28.01, which is a 6.3% increase over fiscal year 2025. So the next question then is, well, what impact does that have in dollars on me? And last year when we were doing this, we had a number of people who said, what about commercial properties? Our graph here only went up to like 1 million or 2 million, something like that. So we added on and tried to make it a little bit clearer for people. So the first column is the actual property value. And then the next column is the assessed value, which is what your taxes are based on. So in our previous year, the mill rate was 26.36. If this budget passes, it would go to 28.01. So at the lowest, a $50,000 property would have a monthly increase of $5. If you went to our median home value in East Lyme is approximately $387 million. So somewhere between the $350,000 and $400,000 property value, and you'll see that the monthly increase is going to be somewhere between $34 and $38. So you can kind of look to see where you fall on this and see what the impact would be on you. So on to the capital projects. So these are for the current year. So although we will be showing you the 5-year capital improvement summary, the the thing we're looking at right here is just the current year. So these are the projects that the Capital Improvement Program Committee voted on to go forward with in this fiscal year. So under general government, some of the things that were adopted were a car for the assessor will be going into revaluation next year. So there's going to be a lot of homes assessed next year. We also have money for a senior center bus. There was a grant that was available, and so we matched that grant. We have a lot of very aged furniture throughout our town government buildings, so we have a number of different projects planned to do some refurbishing there. And there's also $25,000 for the Brookside Museum to do some work. In public safety, we have $755,000 in there for the radio tower. This is it's very important. We have had areas of town where the public safety has not been able to communicate with people. We had an instance where we had police officers responding to an altercation at one of the beaches, and they couldn't get through to anyone on their radio for assistance. So it really is something that we have to invest in. Our entire radio infrastructure, so it also calls for a lot of hardware and other equipment that goes along with it. Public safety also, there was about $376,000 for different vehicles and the equipment that go in the vehicles. The fireboat that Mr. Cunningham referenced of $250,000. So those were some of the main things in public safety. Public Works, we have $999,000 for roads, another $360,000 for vehicles or equipment that they use, and a storage shed that will be employed that will also have some use between the Board of Ed as well and Parks and Rec. So then we have, under Culture and Recreation, we have some Parks and Rec maintenance and equipment, and also a storage shed for Youth and Family Services over at the Community Center. So this is the 5-year capital improvement program, and for the most part...
Can we go over this in the next agenda?
Oh, certainly.
Okay. Was that your last slide?
Yes, other than where you can go for
We
more
will pick right up
information.
when we get the
Perfect.
5-year plan the next day. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hall. That concludes the presentation. I'd like to open it up to the public. Would anyone like to be heard? If so, please come to one of the microphones, state your name and address for the record. Anyone like to be heard?
My name is Michael Beckett, 84 Hope Street, Miami. Again, I'll do that. It's Michael Beckett, 84 Hope Street, Niantic, Connecticut. I am here as the chairman of the Commission on Aging, and I just would like to put a little perspective on behalf of not only our board, but on the senior population of the town. We're not here opposed to the budget. We're just here to give some data that we've already given at various meetings, but we just want to bring this to your attention again. Of our population that's 55 and older, 37% of the population of the town of East Lyme reaches that portion of our population. 32% of our population is 60% or over. And when you look at that from a comparison point of view, the state of Connecticut, the average is 23%. So our town has 1.5 times the typical elderly or senior population in the town. Just a couple other things we'd like to bring to your attention is, number one, is when we talk about percentages of the budget, certainly Board of Education is very, very important to all of us. But we just like to put things in perspective from our point of view. The total budget for the senior is less than 2/3 of 1%, I'm sorry, less than 1/3 of 1% of the entire budget. And a typical, if you take the Board of Education and you just take their total budget divided by their number of school days, we do not even reach the total budget for our senior center does not even come close to 1 day's cost in the Board of Education. So again, we're just here to put things in perspective for everybody. We're not against the budget. We just want to bring those items out there, and I thank you for the option of bringing this to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vekich. Would anyone else like to be heard from the public? One last time. Anyone? Okay. Seeing none, we will move to item number 2 on the agenda. I will entertain a resolution to adopt the 5-year capital plan. Do we have a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second? And we have a second? Okay. I will open it up. Would you like to continue? And then if Mr. First Selectman, you have something you want to present on that?
So generally speaking, in the 5-year, when we create the 5-year capital plan, we're looking out a couple of years ahead to see what we think we may be able to fit in and or, what really needs to be done. So this past year, the community center, the senior center, the library, and the youth and family services, they had explored the idea of creating a bigger and better use of space at the community center. And with that, they were hoping that that would go in this current year budget. But after meeting with them and also meeting with the state legislators, they think that there's an opportunity to get some state funding for that. So if you see in 2028, it's actually in the Public Works budget because it's building a building and they would be getting involved in a lot. So that goes into the CIP because we want to make sure that when the state looks at this, that they know that we're serious, that this would be a project that we would support. And if it wasn't in the CIP, then they would be less inclined to help fund it for us. So that's doesn't mean that this is a sure thing, that we're automatically going to borrow that $20.7 million in 2028. But we have to have a number in there and some, reasonableness so that when the state looks at it, they might look on it favorably. But, every year we look, and I see Mr. Burgaw out there, head of our Public Works, and he has a very thorough way of looking at every single piece of equipment and then going out each year saying what is the expected life of every piece of equipment and figuring out when he's going to have to replace everything. So that's the type of thing that you then would see in his CIP is exactly what has to be replaced year in and year out. And the same thing goes with our Parks and Rec, obviously the Board of Ed as well. So I think the other big thing in here is in public safety, there is money for the fire service, $7.5 million in facilities renovation. We've got 2 buildings one that was built in 1957, one that was built in 1923. So they're hoping that in a few years out, they might be able to do a either rebuild or restore of those things. Other than that, most of the items, as you can see, are fairly what we expect to come forward. But again, the only thing that is sure in our budget is the current capital expenditures. Everything going forward is more of a best guess of where we're going to be and what we will need to be bonding in the future. The other thing, I just want to point out, we've been very diligent about putting a lot of information up on the Town of East Lyme website. If you haven't been to the website, I really encourage you to go. It's eltownhall.com. And if you hit on government and then hit on Board of Finance, we have all of the budget documents. There's links to the videos from our meetings to not just our meetings, but the public hearing that was held here on the 28th. And we have information on there about our fund balance policy and all sorts of helpful information that I find fascinating. I don't know that everybody else does, but I just think that transparency is great. And if you have any questions, my email is out there too, and I'm happy to answer anything. Thank you, Mr. Salerno.
Thank you, Ms. Ault. Mr. First Selectman, do you have anything you'd like to talk about on the 5-year plan? Or-
Nothing really that hasn't already been covered, but again, I just want to emphasize how helpful it was, to look at the infrastructure with the Board of Selectmen members and the Board of Finance members, and really do the legwork to really see what we have and what we need. And that was very helpful in projecting, to 2030 where the need would be. So hopefully we'll continue to do that in the future years.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Would anyone else like to be heard? Anyone else like to be heard? Okay, seeing none, we will move the question. All those in favor of adopting the 5-year capital improvement plan, please signify by saying aye. Oppose? Motion carries. This being the last item on the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting to a referendum by machine vote to take place on May 22nd, 2025 at the East Lyme Community Center from 8 a.m. 8 p.m. Is there a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. See you at the polls.